Conversations with Nicole. Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about, let's talk about, yeah. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host, and Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Wellness Wednesday. Wellness Wednesday is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about whatever it is we want to talk about. And today we are talking about spiritual wealth and spiritual wealth as it relates to you building a family dynasty and family wealth. And so, my very special guest is no stranger to Conversations with Nicole. But since the last time she was here, she has gained some more letters behind her name. So, she is now Dr. LaTanya White, not just LaTanya White. Okay. So, put some respect on that name. Listen, I am so glad to have my sister here with me tonight. So you all are in for a treat. So listen, you better tag somebody and tell them they need to be right here because y'all are about to get all of the tea, all of the gems, all of the knowledge tonight. Okay. So we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Greater Works Network on RokuTV. So again, tag a friend and let them know that they need to be on here. So I want to hear from you. This is an interactive live. I fully expect to receive your questions and comments. We do tonight. But before we get started, in the comments, let us know where you're tuning in from, what city, what state. I see some of you already chiming in. My cousin Denise in Texas, thanks for being here. Tracy Golay here in Tally Ho. Thanks for being here. Leslie Steele, hey girl, good to see you. Thanks for being here. My mom is here from South Florida in Miami. My sister Shayla down in Broward County. Thanks for being here. And Ozzy Daniel. Ozzy was on with me on Monday. We talked about gratitude. So Virginia Beach, Virginia checking in. All right. And YouTuber. I don't know why we can't see your name, but good evening to you too. And Johnny Johnson. Thank you, Johnny, for being here. So again, Dr. LaTanya White is joining us today. And again, I'm so excited. She was on, let me think, season 3, I believe it was. No, season 2. And I believe it was season 4, now that I think about it. Yeah, season 2 and season 4. So, yeah, and at the time, she talked to us about Lemonade Day and entrepreneurship, which has always been her thing. But she's taken it to a whole nother level. So I'm super excited again for her to be here. So while the rest of you all are joining us, I'm going to go ahead and read her brief bio, which, listen, she is a superstar, okay? Dr. LaTanya White is the recipient of the North Star and Innovative New Scholar Awards for Entrepreneurship, Education, and Research. She is an expert in belonging, racial equity, and entrepreneurship. As a result of her leadership, impact, and contributions to the education and business administration sectors, Dr. White was recognized by the United States Department of State as a Fulbright specialist. I told y'all she was a superstar. She leverages her research and expertise on Black entrepreneurship and the racial wealth gap to help inclusive entrepreneurs, support organizations create racial equity in their policies, praxis, and programming. Dr. White is a 2 times author, TEDx speaker, and founder of Concept Creative Group, a professional and management development training firm focused on empowering Black entrepreneurs, their families, and their communities. You can learn more about her solutions for racial equity in entrepreneurship at her site, which we will share with you later on. So, y'all, help me welcome. And I also have to add, she is also a homegirl from the 305 and a rattler. Yes, a graduate of the Florida Agriculture and Mechanical University. That wasn't in the brief bio, but I'm just letting y'all know. All right, Rattler, stand up and welcome Dr. LaTanya White.
Oh my goodness. Hey Nicole, I'm backstage cracking up. Like I love it. I'm feeling the energy. I feel the love all the way from South Florida, Virginia Beach, from everybody in the
Yes,
comments. I'm
yes,
so excited to be here.
yes, yes. And we're excited to have you. All
Thank you.
right,
Thank you.
so I want you to tell the people this is a new question that I
Mhm,
ask. I ask, who are you? I already
mhm.
talked a little bit about what you do, but who is Dr. LaTanya White?
All right. Well, I'm a mom, a sister, a daughter. I'm an empath. I'm an introvert. So I'm gonna always bring the warm and I want to bring the warm and fuzzies, whether you like it or not. And it took me a long time to be able to accept that about myself, that that's a part of my core identity. Um, but I think, even outside of being those things, I am a convener. I like to bring people together. And just like as you shared through my bio, doing this work in belonging. When I bring people together or when I'm in a space with people, I want to make sure that they feel seen and that if nobody else in the room is focused on making sure that person knows that they're in the right room, because a lot of times we move through the world just like in this robot mode that we don't even know when we don't feel like we're supposed to be in a space. So I try to amplify a person's sense of belonging so that they self-actualize, right? So that they're always in a place to be the best version of themselves, because that's a part of how we transfer wealth, is when we are able to transfer that love that emanates from us, that we're built from. So that's probably the thing I'm most proud of, is because I was teased growing up for being the cousin that cries at Publix commercials, right? Every Thanksgiving I'm crying at the same commercials. But it's because I am empathetic to the lived experience and especially of my people. So
Hmm.
I like to say that's who I am.
I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. So the belonging piece is what captured me. Like, ooh, that's probably a
Yes.
whole live in and of itself. But can you just tell us briefly, kind of like what that is?
Mhm. You know, there's a lot of discussion where a lot of us are coming to grips with this term imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
right? So belonging is almost the other side of the coin of
Mm,
imposter syndrome. I like to think that this sense of belonging is, especially in the context of everybody putting this money towards advancing racial equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. One
mm,
of the things that I found is your board can be diverse. You can have an inclusive group of students, but if you aren't ensuring, like if you aren't being intentional about making me feel like I belong in that space, then the work that you're doing is for nothing. So
mm,
belonging is this sense that I'm supposed to be here. Like
mm,
wealth, for one, is my birthright, and I'm coming to get it. And I belong in the space where I have access to wealth. I have access to healthy relationships. I have access to subject matter experts. I belong in those spaces, and then I become this best version of me. I don't think we can self-actualize. I don't think we can be the best versions of ourselves if we're operating as imposters.
mm. Wow, that is amazing.
Thank
I
you.
belong here. I belong here. Yes, I
Yes.
love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Whew. All right. I'm just I'm just soaking all of that in right now. Soaking all of that in. All right. So I'm getting a message just really
Okay.
quick that some of like maybe your earrings are tapping up
Oh,
against the
okay.
yeah, giving us a little background
There
noise.
you go. There you go.
So okay, belonging. But we're gonna talk about spiritual wealth,
Yes.
spiritual health, and how
Mm-hmm.
that impacts our ability to build family wealth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's start out with you. So you did your dissertation on dynastic wealth,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's start there. What is
Okay.
dynastic wealth and how is it different from generational wealth?
So I was conducting my literature review on Black business families, and I came across this article by the Institute for Policy Studies. Literally, the title was Inherited Wealth Dynasties.
Mm,
And I'm like, this is a new term, right? I've been doing this entrepreneurship thing for a long time. I've never heard this term. So I went down the rabbit hole and we know the Rockefeller family. We've heard of the Waltons, and if you have a sweet tooth like I do, then them peanut M&Ms and the Snickers, I'm keeping the Mars family in business with my
right,
sweet tooth.
right.
But those families have controlled their wealth. They've maintained control of their businesses and by definition, this is looking at 3 consecutive generations. And that's when a family reaches dynastic status. Those families took these strategic steps to not just think about, there's a lot of excitement in the culture on social media around generational wealth and what it's going to do for Black families. And I want to push us, right? Like, yes, generational wealth is the foundation, but we have to go beyond generational wealth if we're really going to change the narrative. And that's where dynastic wealth comes into play. I think what I'm most excited about, because if generational wealth was going to be the answer, when I did this research on the economic data from the 1960s, it would not look the same as economic data does in 2000, in the early 2000s. Something was missing. Something is missing from that conversation.
Mm,
And what those things are, these different forms of wealth, and spiritual wealth is one of those other forms of wealth that these families are intentionally creating and passing down. And now it's our turn. We need to know the same information. We need to walk through our own individual healing processes so that we can have these discussions about money,
yeah,
healthy discussions about money in our families.
I love that. Healthy discussions about money. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a comment in the chat, not Rockefeller, Rockefeller.
Yes.
The
So that is
yes.
Dr. Terry Parks, a psychologist out of Atlanta with his sense of humor. Uh-huh. Talking about you mean Jay-Z now? No, not Jay-Z now, Dr. Parks. Okay. Hey, Nick Maddox, thank you for being here. All right. So all right. So do we have any questions based on what she just said about what dynastic wealth is? You said 3 generations,
Hmm.
and a generation is how long?
Typically 20, well, 18 to about 24 years
Okay.
is when we're looking at when people are having kids. That's what is creating the next generation.
Okay.
So 3 generations, 4 directions to transfer wealth, and 5 forms of wealth.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So we're gonna say for easy math, a generation is 20 years. So 60
Hmm.
years. All right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Wow.
Hmm.
All right. So we're talking about spiritual wealth,
Yes.
all right?
Yes.
Which is one aspect of this wealth gain.
Hmm.
So what is spiritual wealth and
Hmm.
talk about how that's related to dynastic wealth.
So spiritual wealth, and to be clear, to be fair, right? A dynasty, a family cannot reach dynastic status without having that foundation of financial wealth. So as we're building financial wealth, we got your earn your leisures, we got your technical assistance programs. We also need to learn how to build these other forms of wealth. Spiritual wealth, I think, being probably the most important when it comes to transferring across the three generations. So
Mm.
spiritual wealth is not based on any religion, right? It's
Mhm.
not couched in any form of religion. It's the idea that, especially on the wealth building side, like that financial side, it's the idea that we're doing this for a greater purpose than just financial gain. And I understand, right? We as a people, we have been oppressed for so long that as we're building this financial wealth, we can finally start to thrive, because I've been in survival mode for so long. I can finally start to thrive. And now here you come, Dr. White, telling me I need to be thinking three generations, 60 years from now, like, right,
Right.
according to the math. But we use it as our guiding principle. We use it as this call to action to be of service to members of our family that we may never meet. But let's think about, if our grandparents had different opportunities, what would life look like for us? What economic position would we be in if they had different opportunities? They say, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
So it's our responsibility now to start building for those three generations down the line.
Mm. Wow. So imagine planning for 60 years from now.
hmm
Mm.
And that takes the spiritual health, right, that we're here to talk about.
Hmm.
It takes doing the healing work to be ready for those kinds of conversations. My grandmother's 90 years old. She's
Mm.
still active. She gets on Zoom with us 2 times a week and everything. But grandma said she didn't want to go back any further in her family history past her mother, right? And in speaking about her spiritual health, in building the family spiritual wealth, we had to acknowledge that pain.
Mm.
Even if she didn't have the language for it, if she didn't have the words for it, we had to acknowledge that. But we also could not let that stop the history that we had to take,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because I was in my 20s when my great grandmother passed, so I had a relationship with her, but my daughter won't, right? So it's not fair to my daughter and her children to not know beyond their great grandmother.
Mm.
So that this aspect of spiritual wealth really comes down to, what work do we need to do for healing in order to make these conversations easier?
So, very good question. Actually, because as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, in order to be wealthy, you got to be healthy, don't you?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So, spiritual health. Well, so what does that look like?
And in our families and Black families, we think about and there's a lot of discussion about generational trauma
Hmm.
naturally. And if we look at the correlation between generational trauma and generational poverty, it's almost a one to one, it's almost a direct correlation. Um, so, heirs property, there's this concept about how Black families, we've lost so much wealth through the loss of land ownership. And some of that is because we, one, didn't know what documents we needed, but also we hadn't been talking to our elders. We
Mm.
hadn't been talking to Auntie and Mud Dear and Big Mama about whose house is that? Like, why do we always go to that place for summer break? Like, we haven't been doing the history, the oral history in our family. So that looks like and it's not going to be easy. I have to say this, but it looks like becoming the historian in your family. It looks like going to, and I have that one uncle that get, that doesn't, and it's just not here for it. Like, let's get down to business and brass tacks. We're not doing the warm and fuzzy stuff. But I need to know your lived lived experience. I need to understand what are the things that have brought you here, and how that informs the way you interact with money, the way you interact with the rest of this family. So the first step is to really begin to capture some of the history of the family, and it
Mm,
becomes therapeutic in a way for our family members.
wow. Yeah, no, history I think is very important, because so much of who our ancestors are is who we are.
Mhm.
Even without knowing, there are some things sometimes we can find out. It's like, well, that's why I do that, or
Right.
yeah. So yeah, I believe that as well. Capturing
Mhm.
family history
Mhm.
is something
Mhm.
that we absolutely should do. And I think also learning from some of the things that our ancestors did, so the lessons that maybe
Yes.
they learned or didn't learn, that we can
Yes.
learn from, right?
Yes.
Let me pause. I see a few people on. So, hey there, Rashonda. Thanks for being here. Also, Miss Pamela Jones Smith and my sister LaTanya Smith out of Atlanta. Thank you for being here.
Mhm.
So, all right. So you said generational trauma and generational poverty, a one-to-one correlation.
Mhm.
That's powerful.
Mhm.
Powerful,
Mhm.
powerful, powerful.
Mhm.
So, those traumatic experiences
Yeah.
maybe we may not think have an impact, or we kind of glaze over or look over it. It's affecting
Mhm.
our pockets as well.
Mhm. It
Hmm.
absolutely is. And I know for a lot of your subject matter experts that have been on, they're familiar with the ACE survey, so adverse childhood
Good experience.
experiences.
Yes. Hmm.
And that's probably the most quantifiable measure that I'm familiar with,
Right.
or the most validated measure that quantifies what traumatic experiences we've had. But
Mhm.
if we think about, if you've had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, then we tend to develop what's called a fixed mindset, right? Which is to say, this what I'm doing, this what I'm going to keep doing, and I don't want to try anything else.
Mm.
And that becomes this vicious cycle that we perpetuate, right? Like
Yeah.
if you aren't going to explore new things, then your risk propensity, the likelihood that you're going to take a calculated risk is low.
Mm.
From an economic standpoint, the greater the risk, the greater the return.
Mhm.
So now if we apply that into how we invest in stocks or how we purchase goods, right? We're going to keep purchasing non-appreciative assets. We're going to keep buying shoes. We're going to keep buying cars when we could be buying investment property.
Mhm.
So it's not the most direct thing you would ever piece together, but the data shows, right? The research shows that the more adverse our traumatic experiences are that we have not addressed, the less likely it is that we're going to experience economic mobility. So that's
Mm.
not to say that these two things can't happen. It
Mhm.
comes in doing that work to be healed. So advocating for mental health the way that you do, and in the work that you do, that can be what bridges the gap between generational poverty and economic mobility.
Mm. Nice, 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 nice. Let me pause. I see Michael Cork on, who is here in Tallahassee, and Mr. Warren Cave. Thank you both for being here. So, listen, this is interactive. Your questions are welcome. So, please, in the comments, we are talking about spiritual wealth in particular, as it relates to family wealth, building family
Mhm.
wealth. I see Rashonda on. She said, I'm literally going through these tough conversations now on my father's side of the family, becoming a historian of family lineage and property ownership
Mhm.
and how to properly invest.
Mhm.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's
We
great.
we celebrate you,
Yeah.
Rashonda. We
Yeah.
celebrate you. Please, and I know that is hard work. I
Mhm.
know Lord, I know. I'm sending you positive vibes, positive thoughts, and we'll definitely, Nicole and her team will share some ways that we can stay in touch. I love to be of service to you in any way that I can.
For sure. Thank you. All right. I see a few people chiming in. Hey, Miss Doris. Greetings, Dilbert.
Mm.
Hey, Chandala. Thank y'all for being here. All right. Johnny's got a question. He said, is there a fear that future generations will not appreciate your sacrifices?
There always will be that fear, and I appreciate that question, Johnny. As my family and I, so my family and I have been doing this work. Um, May 2020 is when we started. Then I took a break because it was getting to be too much. In August of 2020, picked it back up. But we've been off and on, really committed to doing this work. And I have an uncle that basically said, "Well, there are 16 of us that are putting in this money. We've established our family identity. We've gotten the trust documents and everything. What happens when Ray Ray the third comes and wants to make a request from the family bank, but Ray Ray Sr. said he didn't want to have anything to do with it?" That's a valid question. And it comes down to, what are we doing it for? Right? So one construct of dynastic wealth is this identity, right? How do we see ourselves as individuals within the family? How do we see ourselves? What is our individual identity? And then how does that inform our family identity? And so that family identity has to be what's considered generative, where the goal is to create something better for future generations. So we take this aspirational view of what we hope for the best, right? It comes down to, we're hoping for the best, that these future generations, that they will appreciate it, but there's also work that needs to be done to prepare them for it. So one of the things, Nicole, you and I talked about this briefly, one of the things that dynastic families do, they aren't around here chasing people down for t-shirt money for the family reunion. I was trying to make sure I didn't say what was on my heart to say. They don't have family reunions. They have family retreats. And
Mm,
this is where that family identity is transferred. So this is where, so my daughter's 8 years old, her generation, they're reading this family constitution to open up the family retreat. So she knows what her identity is. And when these family retreats are happening on such a regular basis, it becomes ingrained in that person's fabric of their identity. So while there may be members of future generations who won't appreciate that work, the vast majority of them will say, no, this is the legacy that I come from. And this is and I have the honor and the privilege to uphold that legacy and continue to make it grow.
yes. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. We got a lot of comments. So, Ishmael, my fellow freshman brother, class of 88 coming in, he said their appreciation in the future is none of our business. We need to do this regardless. Yes.
I
Agree.
received that. I
Agree.
received that.
All right. Hey, Beverly, thanks for being here. She said, hello, this is a great topic. I've had friends who said they are saving to send their grandchildren to college because that's the tradition in their families. Love it.
That's amazing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Ozzy mentioned, oh, okay, wait a minute. Felicia said,
Mm.
all three of my children have expressed entrepreneur aspirations. I support them 100%. I'm an entrepreneur and I try to be a model for them. Love it. Ozzy said good information on healing self, so correlated with wealth. How long have you observed a transition
Mm.
taking place in a family to reach such pivotal status within the Black family in your research?
Great question, Ozzy. I wish I could have found it in the research.
Mm.
I actually wanted to write my dissertation. I wanted to amplify the stories of Black family dynasties, of Black businesses that have been controlled. Okay, so what I have to share here is that there's a difference between ownership and control that we have to acknowledge. So these dynastic families are making sure that three generations control the business. And with that being said, because of redlining, Jim Crow, Plessy versus Ferguson, there were
Mhm.
so few Black dynasties that I could find the stories of that I couldn't even write my dissertation on Black family dynasty. So that's why I ended up looking at dynastic wealth. And then after my dissertation, I began working with Black families to say, this is evidence, this is even my lived experience. So, in the case of my family and other families I work with, they're typically three generations that are on these calls. So we'll just get on Zoom. I'll share some of the research that I've conducted, and these families have already been talking about wealth, right? But within this dynasty trust, so there's a legal vehicle called a generation skipping trust, and it's referred to as a dynasty trust. So
Mm.
that right there already accounts for three generations. So I hadn't seen any research that says there's a minimum amount of wealth or assets. It's really about those three generations. So if the family has done the work, family identity, family history, family values, all of that lends itself to building out the family constitution. And that is some of the insight that you want to be able to give an estate planning attorney and say, this is who we are. These are the documents that are going into our family trust. Now we have the legal vehicle, right, that protects the family's assets. And once that third generation has reached 18 or 21 or 25, whatever it is for your family, then you've reached dynastic status. Your family is a dynasty once you are able to identify and protect assets that is controlled by a family trust.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. We do
That's a
have
great
a
question.
few more questions and
Okay.
comments, but before we do, for those of you who may be just joining us, I am on with Dr. LaTanya White, who is again no stranger to conversations with Nicole, and we are talking about why is spiritual wealth necessary for
Mhm,
building your family dynasty, and we've been
mhm,
talking all around dynastic wealth. So Michael Cork said, I think we have to first realize that the acquisition of wealth is not the nemesis to our spiritual health. We can be financially sound and still be grounded in spiritual stance. Love the Lord and be wealthy too.
mhm.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
The the word says a righteous man leaves an inheritance for his children's. That is in the Bible. So
Mhm.
you're absolutely right, Michael. I appreciate you amplifying that.
All right. RJ dropping in. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Rashonda's loving it. Okay, cool. Chandela said, I'm an attorney and I know attorneys who can assist with trust. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Chandela is here in the Tallahassee area. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Seems like I saw somebody else. No, maybe not. Okay. All right. So, woo, let me get back. All right. so, so we've talked about the trust,
Mhm,
which I think is huge. I don't even know if many of us even. But wait, before we even get to the
mhm,
trust, you said, was it a constitution?
mhm. Family Constitution.
Yes, so talk a little bit about that. Like what does that consist of?
That actually, so when I walked my family through that process, it was based on so there are a couple of books. I have to get you links for the books, but the
Okay.
title, Entrusted, Entrusted, Entrusted,
Okay.
that's written by two estate planning attorneys. And one of the things that they talk about is, here we go back to this, who are you as a family, right? What is your spiritual north star?
Mm,
really to kind of take the same principle. There's something that you're you're being guided by this thing. So the family constitution is essentially a document that says this is who we are as a family, this is what we value, this is how the money and the assets in this trust are to be used. So, in our family, what we did, we really talked about, what are the things that are going to be important that stand the test of time, right? Because we don't know how long we're going to be here. So, how in the world do we prepare for 3 generations or 60 years from now? But we know there's always going to be a need for advanced education and training.
mm,
Economic mobility is tied to apprenticeships, it's tied to internships, it's tied to education, it's tied to training. So we want to make sure that future generations have easy access to those things. We know that wealth is tied to home ownership. We want to make sure that future generations and even current generations can come to this family and say, I need assistance with the down payment. I need help within my family because I know there's somebody in here that's been through a home ownership process that can be a mentor to me in my family to help prepare me for home ownership. So, education and training, home ownership, entrepreneurship or business development, and philanthropic endeavors. So, our Constitution says if you want to withdraw funds from this bank that you have to repay in some shape, form, or fashion, they can only be used for these 4 things. So we're not about to have no problems with no funerals or or anything like that
Woo!
because
Don't even get me started, ma'am.
yes,
Don't even get me started with the
yes,
GoFundMe for the
yes.
funerals.
Yes, yes. And so one of my uncles to that end, he suggested that in our life insurance policies, we name the family trust as one of the beneficiaries. Even
Mm,
if it's 10%, 15% of whatever their death benefit is, it
mm,
goes to the family trust. So that way it's always being poured into, right?
mm.
So that means that everyone should also have their health insurance, life insurance, wills, all of those things they need to have individually to maintain the health and wealth of the family as well.
So this is I'm calling this affirmation right now because I had two attorneys on last week talking about guardianship, and we could do a whole nother
Mhm.
live on wills and trusts and all of those
Mhm.
sorts of things. So thank you. So Johnny, I see your question. I want to give a greeting to Mr. Roderick Potter from St. Augustine. He said, sorry I'm late. It's okay. We appreciate you being here. All right. Johnny said, what type of assets are included in the trust?
That's a great question, and I'm so glad that Shalonda was on and mentioned about working with estate planning attorneys. I'm here in Tallahassee. I shuttle back and forth between Tallahassee and the DC area, but my estate planning attorney is attorney Jamie Coleman. And I sat down to do my own like estate planning, and she gave me this. So, what about your jewelry? And what about these things? I'm thinking it's house, it's stocks, it's insurance. No, everything that adds value to my life can be considered an asset. And so when we talk about what does that look like for the family, that's when we can get into grandma's house out here in the country, right? And then maybe there's a book collection. Um, the Black History Museum in Thomasville, the Jack Bradley Black History Museum, and their entire library was donated from someone's personal estate. So the things that you find value in can be considered assets in addition to your traditional stocks, bonds, whole life insurance, business, things of that nature. I would certainly recommend that you be prepared to, have a conversation with an estate planning attorney so that you can have this broader scope of what assets are when we're talking about estate planning versus a balance sheet.
Nice, 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 nice. All right. Let's see. Rashonda said, I had to get a trust established for my aunt by way of an attorney. These steps are enlightening. Uh-oh. 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 Are enlightening
Mhm.
and knowledgeable to properly handle and protect her finances. Nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I mean those are tools that we definitely need to be using to protect our
Mhm,
assets for future generations.
mhm, mhm,
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for being here. So
mhm.
I got a question for the viewers. You mentioned about the spiritual North Star, and some
Yes.
of the questions that you asked were around who are we, meaning our family, and what do we value and how assets are to be used. So I want to ask the viewers, who is your family? Either who is your family or what do you value? If you would in the
Mm.
comments, if you don't mind, just share with us, a sentence or a word or two around what do you value. I'll go with that one. What does your family value? What does your family value? And, I think that's
Great
something really
question.
great to think about. Something really great to think about. So while you all are typing that in the comments, we're going to read Kara's question. Thank you for being here, Kara. She's giving a shout out to her line sister. Uh-huh. She said, you have a wealth of information. Love this in you. How do you merge combined assets from foreign nations? Good question.
It is. It is a really good question, and thank you so much, LS, for the support as always. I think the matter of combining the assets from foreign nations, and I have had brief conversations about this, is to have legal representation in those different countries, and then essentially creating what could be considered a family office. So this concept of a family office is when you have a lawyer, an accountant, maybe a tax professional. They're all working together. They're all on the same page for your family's good, right? It's not about you as a tax client, you as a law client, you as an accounting client. It's the family as a client, and they're all working on your team. So when you've identified a legal professional in different foreign countries and you have a legal professional, say here in the States, then it's about getting those two on the same page about how these assets should be classified, how do they show up in the trust, how do you have access to them, or how do future generations have access to them. But it really comes down to ensuring that you have legal representation that understands the legalities of those foreign countries or foreign nations.
Okay. Good questions. All right. Nobody put anything in the comments.
Well,
Nobody. Go ahead.
what is your family value, Nicole?
So I think my family values family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think my family values family.
Mm,
I think that wanting to see one another win and do well, and
mhm,
um, support. I got that. I think that's who we are. That's what we're about.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a way, so with Entrusted, and thank you for putting the link in the chat. With Entrusted, there are some steps that they walk through to help. And this is the same method that I did in my dissertation. So you want to make sure that everyone who wants to participate, because not everyone will, and we have to be okay with that idea. Not everyone will want to be a part of this dynasty building, all this woo woo, warm and fuzzy, because we're just trying to survive again in a lot of cases.
Mm-hmm.
But you make sure everyone's voice is heard. And then what you do is find the patterns
Mm-hmm.
and the theme that comes out from everyone's contribution. And then you develop these major things around family values and family identity. So if your family values family, then it sounds like we honor life and lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the kind of language that goes into the family constitution. So I saw that there was a comment that you were about
So
to say.
there are lots of comments. Lots of people are now chiming in. Ozzy said, "My family values the home property that we lived on and built over 40 years."
That's good. I
Yeah,
love that.
that is. All right. Tony, the bond my cousins and I have,
Hmm. Hmm.
and my sister.
Hmm.
Nice. My mom said, "I value education for my children and their children."
Hmm.
Hmm. Nice, Mom. Thanks. Hey, Dr.
Dr.
Asha.
Asha.
All right. My sister said education. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. Chandela said, "My family values education, opportunities to see the world, and keeping each other healthy."
Hmm. Hmm.
All right. Cousin Denise, my daughter and nieces and nephews. All right. Nice family. Carl, my family values connectedness to and support of each other. We are trying to connect family members to us to,
In the US.
in the US,
Hmm.
Jamaica, Canada, UK, and Denmark. Nice. Okay, cool. Very
Wow.
good. Well, thank y'all for
Yes.
along with me.
And Nicole, if I could build on that, so
Yeah.
everything that everyone shared, that's what you all value now, right?
Mhm.
And a part of how we've learned to value those things is because of the model that our elders have provided for us in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
Now we have this responsibility to ensure that we transfer that knowledge and we help, our children, our nieces, our grandchildren and great nieces, we have to honor their own individual identities in the midst of what this family values. So
Mm.
there's always going to be like finding this way to balance. It's just like when Gen Z, right? When new employees who are Gen Z, they come into the workforce and us Gen Xers be like, what they got going on? But it's about creating a safe that balance between personal expression and
Mhm.
also this is where you are. This is the stock that you come from. And so again, these family retreats, they'll have them either annually or every other year, but the family retreats open with a reading of the family constitution, right?
Mm.
So Sparrow, like I said, Sparrow and her generation, they're opening the retreat, reading the Constitution, and then they go into workshops on, well, it used to be lemonade stands, now it's probably cryptocurrencies and NFTs, but every generation is reminded of who they are and their role in carrying forth this family tradition and this family identity.
Love it. So, for those who may not know, Sparrow is Dr. White's daughter. And how old is Sparrow?
Sparrow is 8 going on 45.
And I believe it too.
Yes,
Oh
thank
my
you.
gosh. Yes, so that's great. I mean, every year you're training them up and in that family unit, everybody is participating in harmony and unity with one another. I love it. All right. Ish said we are a part of multiple families, mom
Mhm,
side, dad side, their mom side, dad side, and so on. So
mhm,
each have a different approach. But for my paternal side, Rents, they value family gatherings.
mhm.
Mhm.
That's a good intersection, right? Because we think about, and we'll say Sparrow. So on Sparrow's mom's side, that side of her family, we're doing the work actively. Her dad's side is just beginning to have the conversations. So
Mhm.
what does that trust look like? And we have significant amount of influence. When you sit down with the estate planning attorney, they are going to get all up in the details.
Mhm.
So I was asked, well, who are the beneficiaries? Who can be a beneficiary of this family trust? And our family, we decided that it was any descendant of my grandmother.
Mhm.
Um, because remember, grandma didn't necessarily want to go back beyond her mom, but we started with her because she's the eldest in our family. So
Mhm.
any descendant of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, by blood, marriage, or adoption.
Mm.
And so that means we know family is what we make it in a lot of cases. But as for the way that family trust and that family constitution is designed, it's based on those principles.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Well, I mean, this is a lot, and we really could go on, but I want
Ooh,
to kind of try to wrap us up a little bit.
okay.
So talk to us about what you believe some of the next steps for Black families are to build dynastic wealth.
Well, first I got to say, I'm just so excited that there are spaces where we can have these kind of safe conversations
Absolutely.
about our families,
Mm.
right? Because listen, I come from a Black family, and we put the fun in dysfunctional. I know we did that, right?
Did you say you put the fun in dysfunctional
We
male?
sure did. And I like to think that many of us have a similar sentiment about our families, and where else can we be in a space besides here with what you've created, Nicole, to
No.
talk about what it looks like, what our work is to do
Mm.
for to prepare the next 60 years, the next three generations.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, it's really being intentional.
Mm.
There's so much noise, there's so many things that are competing for our attention, for our love, right? It's really about being intentional. So my family and I, we get on Zoom twice a week. On Sundays, it's just a share night, right? You know, what's a scripture or what's a song that you want to share with the family? That keeps us connected. And so with that kind of work, it makes it easier to say, okay, Tanya and Jermaine need to talk to us about, our family contributions that we need to start doing, because we've been intentionally working to be connected, to honor everyone's lived experiences, and then being able to be more empathetic towards everyone's individual relationships with money, so that this collective work that we're doing, we now have empathy and we have compassion around
Mm.
why we choose, or we've chosen in the past, to operate in a specific way. So I think to answer your question in short, it's being intentional about connecting with your family
Mhm.
and being ready to have the hard conversations. It's time to have we talk about everything. It is time to start having these hard conversations about wealth and money in our families, and then taking that next step to do the work around family identity, family history, family values, and family constitutions.
Hmm. Okay. I hope y'all got that. If not, y'all can catch the replay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. So Dr. Asha said, I can speak to Dr. White's advice to be intentional. It is because of her that my family started doing family meetings to discuss our family goals and plans. Yes, my family does that as well. Antonio, intentional. I love it. Take back control from the autopilot. Yes, 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 yes. Very eye opening and gratitude invoking for me. Thank you, Asha. Good stuff. Thank you, Ozzy. All right. So, boy, again, this is a lot to take in, and I know we may have to replay this, and we probably need to have you back too. But I know you got some things coming up, and I want you to tell the people how they can connect with you.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Yes,
I love that. Tell the people. I think we've been saying that since the beginning.
definitely tell the peoples.
um, so a lot of the work that I've been doing since I finished my dissertation has really been to support Black entrepreneurs. I work with colleges, universities, any organization that's doing a training program for entrepreneurs. And I go in and I talk to these program designers about how the way that they are teaching is leaving Black entrepreneurs. We're not being left behind, we're being left out. So we can really circle back to our point in the conversation about belonging, right?
Right.
Like I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna get this information, but I don't really feel like I belong here.
Mm.
So that's the work that I've been doing. And now what I'm excited about is really being able to connect deeply with Black families. And so I
Yeah.
talked a lot about, what family retreats look like
Hmm.
in current dynastic families, but I'm ready to help Black families build their own dynasties. And so that's one thing that I'm working on for Juneteenth weekend in Washington, D.C.,
Hmm.
the inaugural Dynastic Wealth Family Retreat. So looking forward to having some genealogy workshops, on-site family history, technical assistance, entrepreneurial training, and family constitutions.
Yes.
So
Did y'all hear that? The inaugural Dynastic Wealth Family Retreat.
yes,
So
two and
Juneteenth weekend, no better weekend to have that.
thank you.
So how can people plug in? How
Oh
can
my goodness, I'm just cheesing over here. So let's see. I'll put it back in the chat.
okay.
The website address. So I keep my calendar online.
Okay.
It's Meet Dr. White, meetdr.white.com
Mm-hmm.
backslash let's connect. And
Okay.
I'm take you straight to my calendar. I'm always happy to be of service to answer any questions, because this is my work. This is the work that I'm purposed to do. So I'm proud to do it.
Yes, 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 yes. Wonderful. All right. So I see people in the comments saying they about the schedule right now.
Okay. Okay.
About the schedule right now. I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes. Said we need part two and part three. Okay.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
So to that end, so spiritual wealth is actually what we'll be unpacking in the training program with FAMU.
Okay.
The Building Black Dynasties is a 7-part series training program on dynastic wealth. So
Mhm.
I'll make sure to get the link to you. I should have had it,
Yes.
should have known that you'd be like, well, where's the link?
Will do. Will
But
do.
that's what we're working on next week.
Yes. All right. I should talk about it's the
I
boldness.
love it. I
Okay,
love it.
Johnny, what type of business entrepreneurship do you recommend?
I am a huge advocate for pursuing entrepreneurship in a path that feels purposed for you. I because entrepreneurship, Dr. Asha, Nicole, it's not as sexy as they make it look on the gram. It's
Mhm.
hard work out in these entrepreneurship
It
streets.
is hard work. It is. Woo.
So
Woo.
with that, my suggestion is to really be connected to what you are driven by. And
Mhm.
we can build a business around it, but making sure that you're connected to your own core identity and how that drives you in the work that you would do, right? What will wake you up every morning, like, and be happy to do it? That's the
Mhm.
type of business I would recommend.
Absolutely. Look, and then set up some systems.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. 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 All
So the
right.
email challenge,
Mhm.
I actually need to update that. So thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is she's gonna update it. All right. This is the work that I am purpose to do. Mm-hmm. So,
That little emoji.
Sarita say. So this is Sarita is the mom of Born Brilliant. Okay. Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So for
Yes.
those of you who don't know Born Brilliant, they were on season 4 with Dr. White, and
Mm-hmm.
these are three lovely young ladies Gosh, I guess they were like elementary school when they started their business, middle and elementary
Man.
school, and they started out with baked goods, but also did some other products too, but all delicious stuff. Whatever they put their
Mhm.
hands on is good.
Mhm.
She's saying hi to us. Greetings, greetings.
Mhm.
Please give our love to the family. Thank you for being here. So, all right. So we got the retreat going coming up. We you have some books that you mentioned. So there is a link for that. Um
Yes. Mhm.
and here is how folks can connect again
Mhm.
with you. So you definitely want to connect with her there, schedule an appointment, and also check out again the retreat. So I hope this has been beneficial to you all. If it has, if you will, in the comments, give us some thumbs up or hearts or something in the comments. Let us know. Let us know. All
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, thank
I
you, thank
love
you.
this.
This was great. This was really great. Just something for us to think about. Something else that we can talk to our families about outside of all of the craziness that's going
Mhm.
on, but focusing in on our our plan, our constitution, our values, our assets. Right? I love
Mhm.
that. I love that.
Mhm. Thank you. Oh, look at this. Oh, thank you so much, Nicole, for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Anytime, anytime. All right, Miss Jeanette said, find something that no one else is doing. How
Mhm.
can it help others or improve on an idea that exists equals success? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Miss
I
Jeanette.
love it.
So these are some fellow bulls. So I didn't mention this, but LaTanya is a Northwestern bull. hmm So my mom's class is celebrating 60 years this year.
Wow, that's
That is amazing.
amazing.
That is
I
amazing.
love it. I love it. This has been so good. And
Mm,
I'm so thankful to be of service to the CWN community.
thank you.
I'm always here to help. You know, just shoot me a text message, whatever you
Absolutely.
need.
Absolutely. We are glad. So Leslie is putting in a plug saying, is there a date
Oh,
for the
yes.
FAMU events? All right.
Yes, there is. So we actually meet, it's a hybrid training session Wednesdays from 6 to 7 p.m. So next tonight was actually our second training session. We started with the overview of the history of Black entrepreneurship last week. Tonight we went into establishing financial wealth, and next week we'll be working on building spiritual wealth. So the timing, I guess, is perfect. But 6 to 7 p.m. And I do have a link.
All
There
right.
it is.
We'll get
So
it.
this is the link for the event that happened today.
Okay.
But go ahead and get familiar with the website, and then that way, like, create an account. You can get the emails to register for Zoom if you're in Virginia Beach, or if you're going to come up on FAMU's campus without having to worry about parking because it's in the evening.
Mhm.
Then you're welcome to do that.
Nice, nice, nice. Thanks for sharing that. And we will definitely get that out. It's a startup tree. And so the link is in the comments. So definitely check that out. I was
Yes,
on last week, wasn't on this week, but really great information. And it's only an hour. So it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it.
yes. Thank you,
Absolutely.
thank you.
All right. Well,
Love
again,
this.
thank you so much, Dr. White, for your time, your knowledge, your expertise, for joining us tonight and doing the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I receive it, and I look forward to being in touch with you all.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you all. We will see you next week. We have some great shows lined up, but you all be careful out here. You know, it's a crazy time we living in, but yeah, just be careful. I want to see y'all in the comments next week. All right. Be safe, and we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.